Welcome to the show. My name is Charlton with Big C. This is Charlton and Big C Sports, coming to you worldwide on the Big C Sports Network, on the number one network in the United States of America. And Big C Sports has been voted the number one sports show in the universe, according to Big C. And them good old boys down south, I want to say bienvenidos to all of our listeners in Latin America, also across the pond in London, England, as well as Paris, France, of course. You good old boys in Canada, we love you. In Africa, the Big C tribe. But there's no one we love more than the good old boys down south in the land of the free and the home of the brave on a beautiful June the 21st, 2019. Grando Deportes, Big C. How's it going for you good old boys down south?
Charlton, I lived the mystery of the NBA draft last night. You talk about an unmesmerizing scenario that went on. I mean, it's almost, as Dick Vitale would say, diaper dandies, because it's not grown men being drafted anymore, Charlton. It's a bunch of kids.
Yeah, it's a bunch of kids, and ironically, they make it seem like everybody invited to the draft gets a cookie. But you mentioned the kids that declare for the draft, and they only have so many jobs available. And then you have the European players. It's almost like it's taking advantage of people, but it's giving them paid. So I know you got to look at the bright side of things, but it's really just a circus, and it's nothing like the football. It's just a little bit different. I see a lot of young people who could still be in college, and they're giving them this event as if this is what you were born to be. And what a shame is everything that you're born to be is just an athlete. And I know there's a lot fair and love and war, but we all talk about that as well. Also some baseball schedule tonight as well. But everybody is still focused on football. Even here in the Bay Area, there are people who are talking about the football games that are scheduled. I know Georgia's going to play Notre Dame, and it's going to be a night game down in Georgia. So how often do you see a night game from the SEC against a non-conference opponent? So that's big too, Big C. I want to say today's show is sponsored by your Northern California Cadillac dealers, home of the all-new Cadillac Escalade, the standard of the world. And when you go by and test drive yours, tell them Charlton and Big C sent you. So one thing that I saw last night, among many things, is even going into the bank today, with my son, and he's a tall kid. So a lot of people immediately, and he's a good honor roll kid too, but a lot of people say, hey, did you see that draft last night? Don't you want to be an NBA player? And I didn't hear them asking that to any of the other people standing in line that may have been a different skin color. Are we all that inoculated, Big C? Your thoughts?
Well, Charlton, I mean, we buy into that as a culture also, saying that our kids only want to be athletes, and we push them into athletics. I mean, it's great for character and team building, being an athlete. But when you talk about academics, I wish we would put more emphasis on that as a culture.
Yeah.
To talk about, no, this is my kid's GPA. This is where he's going to school on an academic scholarship.
Yeah.
Not about, taking them to all the AAU camps and all the, football passing camps, Charlton, trying to get them into college. And yes, education, to get a paid for education is wonderful. I had one.
Yeah.
It was the greatest gift that my parents could get, that I could give them at the time. But, when we look at how difficult it is in having players have an understanding of the chances of being drafted.
Yeah.
Last night, when you look at, the top 10 picks, Charlton, there was no one more than 20 years old being drafted.
I know it.
No one more than 20. There was a lot of 19 and 20-year-olds being drafted in the top 10 last night.
Yeah.
You got to think of the maturity level, the developmental level, that what type of impact will you make in the NBA? I mean, you're going to be tossed millions of dollars. You're going to be tossed on the streets of America and say, deal with it. That's what's going to be said. And then when some of these players don't develop the way that they should because they're put in a city that's too large for them, Charlton,
like New York,
and they don't have a support cast around them.
Yeah.
The NBA is not a babysitting league. They expect for you to be ready to handle manhood when you get there.
Yeah.
But you got players, Charlton, can't go to the bars with their teammates.
Yeah.
Can't do those type of things legally. Let's say legally, okay?
Yeah.
Because they're 6'10",
yeah.
6'9".
You're going to get in.
They're going to let them walk in.
Yeah.
But now all of a sudden, here it is, somebody who's out there dealing with underage drinking. And if it gets good to them, Charlton, how will they be able to manage that outside of that institution that they're in? If they get out in the street, if they're driving, could they cause problems for themselves and other people?
Yeah, and we know there's so many examples where there are parents and grandparents that would introduce alcohol to their grandchildren as if it's just going to stop there. Sometimes those are the ones with the DUIs, drinking and driving, arrested, and all kind of foolish things. but everybody has their own opinion. I want to get on a thought about just, it was a poignant moment, though, when I saw, and I didn't really watch too much of the draft, but when Zion Williamson was being interviewed, I guess, by Maria Taylor, and he broke down in tears, and not that he broke down, but it was a proud moment for him. But I still think about something that I hear about him, and maybe it's just me being sensitive, but he's a good-looking young man. Seems like he has a good head on his shoulder. But in paper, in writing, which is how the courts look at everything, when you're born, you get something in writing, your birth certificate. At the end of life, we get a death certificate. When we get in the middle of life, we get what's called bills. But still, as much as people are loving over Zion Williamson, they still call him a specimen as opposed to a young man. A specimen is something you submit to your doctor. That make any sense, Big C? Your thoughts?
Well, sometimes you don't want to pass that cup over.
And don't use somebody else's cup either, Big C.
I had a teammate that came to training camp one year that was pregnant, because he used his wife's specimen.
That's science.
When you look
Weird
at these
science.
things, Charlton, and how they label athletes, is that he's a specimen. I mean, as you say, he's a young man. He's a developmental young man is what he is.
Yeah.
It would be different. This is how society looks at people of other cultures also.
Yeah.
They look at it in sports with a different dog whistle. Instead of saying he's an outstanding young man, that he's going to develop into an elite athlete, he's a tremendous specimen.
Yeah.
And so, I mean, how do you define a specimen? I mean, we look at animals, we look at different species.
Yeah.
And we also look at lab tests, as you say.
Yeah.
So, but, the thing that kills me when I look at these drafts is that no one talks about the intelligence level of the athlete, academic-wise.
Wingspan.
I hear they have a high sports IQ.
Yeah.
A high basketball. What the hell is a high basketball IQ?
you can
know
pass
how to
and
dribble, you know how to shoot, you know how to pass, you know how to rebound.
Yeah.
That's a basketball IQ. If you want to get to the simplicity of that, that's it. Tell me what this young man studied in school for the 6 months, 12 months, even 18 months while he was in college.
Yeah.
Let's talk about that. What was his realistic major other than trying to get to the NBA?
Yeah.
I understand to say that, they come from a strong parental background, that they have. And what killed me on the broadcast, well, they had both parents in the house.
Yeah.
Wow, like black people don't have both parents in the house? Is that an anathema? Is that, wow, he's a rarity. That, his mom and dad was in the house with him.
Yeah, how did he get conceived in the first place? One person in the household,
They're nuclear black families where you have both mother and father, just like on the white side, Hispanic side, Asian side, and all of that, chocolate.
Yeah.
But I look at the draft, and I'm proud of the young men having an opportunity to live their lifelong dreams.
Yeah.
But as we look at these broadcast networks that make it a meat market, that we're just shuffling another body through.
Like a brothel.
We're not shuffling an individual. We're just shuffling another body through.
Yeah.
And listen to what we have to say about him as an athlete, but we know nothing about him as a person. So when Zion broke down, as well as Jay Morant, they were there with their parent and Barrett.
Yeah.
As they paid homage to their parents for being there all the time, not from just wiping their nose and changing their diaper, Charlton, but making sure they got the practice, making sure they had the academic load to get to the next level in college, to make sure if they had any physical or mental problems, as we talk about the National Suicide Hotline, that they were there for them, that they didn't have to resort to something like that they had a parent in their life. They had parents in their life that guided them and steered them correctly, Charlton. That's the thing that these broadcast companies don't talk enough about. They need to talk about what made these young men as unique as they are. Is the upbringing that they've had in getting through life, Charlton, and getting to that point of becoming an instant millionaire. The news broadcast companies don't pay enough homage and respect to that.
Something that I pay attention to, and especially knowing how hard a lot of these mothers have worked to get their kids in college. And I just got to make this, and I want to talk about a little bit about Cory Booker, Senator Booker, and also Joe Biden, how words matter. I heard Dr. Cornel West talking about words matter. And I want to juxtapose that to this draft, because for the most part, all of these networks, they're white-owned, so they pretend that racism doesn't exist. Especially if you're rich. How could you feel the sting of racism when you're a rich person? But this all ties into so many things, how words matter. And Dr. Cornel West is a lot more brilliant than I am. But that used to be what you could call black men, grown men. Yeah, boy, come here, boy. We know the Jim Crow South mentality. And people say, well, racism's over now, Mitch McConnell, and how we look at our athletes and make them paragons of virtue. Even though sometimes we will insult them just like, boy, come here, boy. And people don't see the offense in that. And Biden didn't see the offense in someone being called boy, Strom Thurmond, and he eulogized him, etc. I know it might seem like it's very complicated. But if people are all numb to it, the word boy has been replaced to freak and specimen. He's a freak. He's a specimen. He used to be a boy, or the N-word. And now we even clap and call ourselves that, freak, specimen. I hear even black men saying that this kid's a freak. But they didn't say to his mother, Mrs. Williamson, how is your freak doing? Are you happy with this freak that you gave birth to? And they don't see how painful that can be for women on a subconscious level. Maybe they don't know how to stand up and say, wait a minute, he's not a freak, he's a young man. Does that make any sense, Big C, your thoughts?
Well, this is the dog whistles, Charlton, that are always used throughout society. You just changed the mantra of what you say.
Yeah.
How to denigrate people. I mean, these only the African-American players, Charlton, are hit with those asinine nicknames that are given from the media.
Yeah.
I mean, Zion Williams never walked into Duke and said, hey, I'm the freak Zion Williams. He never did that.
Right.
Someone wanted to label him as that. And it is carried out, utilizing that in identifying this young man.
Yeah.
Can you imagine? I mean, it's going to be in a city like New Orleans, and people going to, walking down the street, look at that freak. Look at that freak.
Yeah.
I mean, when you look at the connotation of freak in society as far as used towards a person, it's a denigrating statement.
It is. Yeah.
That has been made.
Yeah.
Everybody said, look at that freak over there. Look at that weird person. That's what it means, an abnormal person.
Well,
Zion Williams looked to me every bit of normal that I've ever seen on an athlete.
Good-looking
People
young
say,
man.
he has, uncanny size and speed and agility. I've seen that many times. Zion Williams measures up to a half dozen players. You look 10 years ago.
Yeah.
Blake Griffin came into the NBA looking just like Zion Williams, jumping over cars.
Yeah.
All of these things. Had that athleticism. Larry Johnson 20 years ago came out of UNLV.
Yeah.
Identical body to Zion Williams.
Yep.
Just a few inches shorter. Anthony Mason, who used to play with the Knicks, same body that Zion Williams had.
Yeah.
So, over time, is people find different ways to denigrate people. Even when you talk about Joe Biden and Cory Booker, you're looking at Joe Biden, who came from an era just like with Mitch Thurmond.
Yeah.
I mean, not Mitch,
Strom Thurmond.
Mitch McConnell.
Strom Thurmond, yeah.
These guys who grew up in a generation where you call black men boys all the time.
Yeah.
And I don't expect that generation to change, Charlton. I honestly don't. If we're going to be realistic about political correctness, until that generation dies out, they're going to have the mindset that they have. You're not going to tell an 80-year-old man to say, hey, you got to change your vocabulary from what it used to be 50 years ago.
Yeah.
You can no longer say that, and it's acceptable.
Yes.
They're not going to do it. We have to be unsensitive about that and look forward. Stop looking back to what those guys have done negative-wise.
Yeah.
Find ways not to vote them back in. That's what you do as a person.
Well, I just want to speak for... And again, maybe some mothers don't mind it, but I'm sure they do. They're just not given the platform to say that's disrespectful. My son's not a freak. And I want to tie that in because too many people, mainstream, will take our young black boys, especially the ones that look like they can play sports, and they won't try to push them into medicine and science, even media broadcast. But they'll say, boy, man, you're a good-looking freak. How about I have you come to my school, freak? I'm going to help you get a scholarship, freak, specimen, and you're going to become a multimillionaire, freak. But they do it with a pat on the back, and they have the music pumping, and people are celebrating, the bells and whistles are going off. But I noticed something that's eerie and eerily missing. I don't know of any white kid that's ever been addressed as, look at this freak that just became a millionaire. Look at this specimen. And they pat him on the back and say how much they love him as a specimen and a freak. Because when law enforcement pulls up to his car at nighttime, and he doesn't know he plays NBA basketball, he's thinking, who's this freak driving this nice car at nighttime? What are you doing in this neighborhood, freak, boy? I mean, Dr. Cronenwell is deep. And sometimes when I heard him talking to Anderson Cooper, and I've read his books, Race Matters, and there's so many other things out there. But these men, if we don't let them understand that they have a responsibility. Don't just be ignorant and take that as a, hey, thank you can call me freak, and I'll give you my interview. What would you say to these athletes about if they don't correct it, and only Big C Sports talks about it, everybody else doesn't, Big C, but it's dangerous to young black men to be thought of as freaks and specimens, and I don't like that, but someone's got to stop it outside of us, Big C. Your thoughts?
Well, Charlton, as we constantly talk about parents as well as the individual, Charlton, you have to speak up. You have to be prescient enough as an individual saying, my name, just like Kevin Durant, you know who I am. I'm Kevin Durant. He doesn't say, I'm the freak, I'm the Slim Reaper. He doesn't say that. He doesn't call himself what the media calls him. He calls himself Kevin Durant. James Harden calls himself James Harden. LeBron James, you know, as much as he's been called the chosen one, the great one, the king, he announces himself as LeBron James.
LeBron James, his name.
That's how he announces himself. The media has put all these caps on the players. It's up to the player when you do an interview to call out the media. Say, okay, Maria Taylor last night was Zion. How do you feel? He said, first of all, I'm proud and I'm honored to be the number 1 overall pick in the NBA draft. Second most, I'm not a freak. I'm Zion Williams. And that's how I want to be identified. You have to take the moment to make the announcement to the world, Charlton, when you're given that platform. Everybody, every interview with an athlete has a microphone stuck in his face. He has to be prescient and intelligent enough at that point to make an announcement to the world. You will identify me as Zion Williams, not the freak. I'm just a tremendous athlete. I'm not a freak. I've learned from others, and my skill set is different than others, but I'm still Zion Williams. My mother named me that. My dad named me that. That's who I am, and I'd like for the media to identify me like that. I don't ask which freaking reporter wants to ask me a question now.
Right, exactly. And see, and I want this to be, because it hits me, just like Cory Booker was saying some things about Joe Biden. People say sports and politics don't mix. They do. I think Biden's a fine man, and I even feel that he was saying, if I can work with bigots who are anti-integrationists, and he could be anti-busing, which he also had that come to Jesus moment where they believe all people are treated the same, unless you're in that good old boy group that says, no, we're not. And sometimes you say what you got to say politically. But he could apologize to Cory Booker and say, you know what, maybe I'm willing to look at things I don't see. But I want to take it and tie the politics into sports, because if we're so immune to it, then we'll just let dumb people run the media. And a lot of our dumb broadcasters, especially some of our brethren, and I'm very hard on even more black men, because I hear too many of our own black brethren, because some of them maybe don't read. That was the words they were hearing that their parents heard. Freak, boy, specimen, all the N-word, all that garbage. But never before, I don't think, and maybe I'm naive, never before have we really celebrated it, where now it's the black reporter putting the microphone in somebody's face, and every time we're reading about who these players are, they're freaks, they're specimens, they have a high basketball IQ, that means he can dribble and keep his eyes open at the same time. But they don't do that to white kids. And I know it's subtle. The NBA player in Denver, Jokic, they call him the Joker. Now, for white guys in the league that have his skill, does he have more skill than Zion Williamson? Maybe so. But has he ever been referred to as a white freak? Have they ever heard that? Have you heard that, Big C? I haven't heard it. Your thoughts?
I haven't, Charlton. And far as for the position that he plays in the NBA, he's a very dominant individual. And you would say that if you're using the term freakish, he's freakish for what he can do. Second in the NBA in triple doubles, playing the center position. That's a freakish statistic. But no one ever used the term freak with him. We hear that with Giannis in Milwaukee. You know, his statistics are not as good as Jokic.
No.
But he's referred to as a freak. I mean, he's just a tremendous athlete. So when we only use it towards a certain color of player, we can't even say nationality because players from all over the world.
Exactly.
But it's only labeled towards the brown-skinned players in the league. I mean, and they're tremendous athletes. And for a white player to play on the same level as those are, I would think you would consider him more freakish than you would the brown players in the league.
And I know that no people will talk about it like Big C Sports does, but I'm going to just say this to my young black brethren, because you've been given the millions of dollars, but now you become the ire of many people who will call you a freak and smile at it, and you think it's a compliment. It's not. And so when you're driving that new car you're going to buy in that fancy neighborhood that you never lived in, and mainstream says somebody looks suspicious driving through this neighborhood, it's happened to almost every African American with a nice car. You know what I'm saying? and mainstream knows it too, because oftentimes you're the ones that call the police. So when you've been, and you don't push back on people that call you a freak, I've even put it in writing. And you have the mothership and all these other sports companies out there, they label, I mean, it's almost painful in my gut because I have a young boy. And I don't want, he's not ignorant because I won't let him be ignorant. But there's a lot of kids that they don't think there's anything wrong with it until law enforcement pulls up on them and says, freak, out of the car on the ground, hands behind your head, freak. And I want to know, there's a correlation with the athletes and that what happens in mainstream, whether it's Joe Biden and Cory Booker. We got to tell people, if you step on my foot, you got to say, hey, you stepped on my toes, that hurts. Could you take your foot off? But if you don't say anything about it, how do they know they stepped on your toes? So I hate when people keep pushing young black men as freaks and all that garbage specimens and basketball IQ. They don't say that about white kids. And I'm asking my black brethren, the next time a reporter that puts a microphone in your face and you know they've written about you being a freak, you know who they are. Just ask them if they're a freak. Ask them if their daughters are freaks. Are their wives freaks? Because you can stop it. But if, like Dr. Cornel West said, and Joe Biden and Cory Booker, if you don't tell people when they're crossing the line, they don't know it, Big C. Or maybe they do. But if you don't say anything about it, you really don't care your thoughts.
Well, no, they don't know, Charlton, because it's accepted. You figure if you don't question somebody on an incident,
yeah,
they feel that it's okay. If a police officer doesn't stop you from running a red light, you feel it's okay. The officer said it was okay to stop you, even though you were doing something wrong.
Yeah.
This is the same thing in life, as Dr. West would say. Until you address issues, I know that there's a lot of talk now in America about reparations.
I'll take them.
And Mitch McConnell saying, well, we don't owe anybody reparations. We let them have a black president. That was enough.
Right.
But I only wanted him to be a one-term president. You know, it's like, and I know Alexandria Ocasio, the senator out of New York.
Yeah.
She said she liked, you know, what the U.S. is doing on the southern border likens a lot to the Holocaust, which is true. You have people in internment camps down on the border, sleeping on the ground, no air conditioning, you know, no running water, no sanitary conditions. You know, they can't even change and bathe down there.
Yeah.
And so that's the same thing that you said. And people say, you know, how can you compare it to that? You think about it, you're locking up human beings in a worse condition that you put prisoners housed in.
With no civil protection.
You got them outside, and the government is saying that that's okay, regardless of whether they're from America or not.
But they're not white. That's why they're saying it's okay.
They're not white, so they're saying it's okay. I mean, we have Europeans coming to this country illegally all the time, overstay their visas. I don't see ICE chasing them down, deporting them.
No.
But you see somebody who's brown that doesn't look like the person next door to you, then they're a menace. And so until we can treat everybody in this country right, I mean, everybody that listens to a show, whether it's our show or anybody else's show, Charlton, are no more than 1/6 removed from somebody that's a minority in their family.
Yeah.
They can say they're not, but they are.
Yeah.
It's genetically proven.
Yeah.
So you should always look at other people. If somebody is not doing you wrong and committing harm to you, they're not a bad person. We have enough bad person who go in and shoot up schools, shoot people standing on the corners, you know, selling drugs, that are bad people that we do nothing about as a society.
Yeah.
But when you have someone coming to this country just looking for an opportunity to work and support their family, they're not looking for a handout. They're looking for a helping hand to get a job. That's all they're looking for. We got Americans who refuse to work. We got these young athletes who got these jobs, and now they're elated to go to work.
Yeah.
That's the same way those people across the border feel when they come to America, is that they've just been drafted by a professional league because now they have a job where they can earn enough income to support their family.
And I want to throw out that national hotline because people do go through issues. It's 800-273-8255, the 800-273-8255, and 838-255 if you want to text. That's 838-255. And now I know many of the programs today, they're, you know, clapping their hands and shucking and jiving, and they're saying, congratulations, what kind of suit did you wear? How much did you pay for that suit? Where'd you get the money for that suit? Nobody's asking the reporter, where'd you get the money for your clothing? Where'd you get the money for your jewelry? But they're asking these kids, and let's be honest, some of those kids come out of backgrounds where they cannot afford a $1,000 suit or a $2,000 suit or $5,000 earrings, and they're saying, where'd you get the money for that? How'd you get that?
Well, I'll tell you one thing right off the bat.
Yeah.
The suits that the players wear, the NBA provides those suits for the players. The NBA has a tailor that they send all of these players to, because
Make
this
them
is
look
a
nice.
showcase for the league.
Yeah.
So they want to make sure that their players who come up there, the future of their organization, are dressed properly, Charlton. They don't want any speculation about what these players are wearing. So the NBA provides tailors. These are all tailor-made suits that these players. You're not going to go buy off the rack for a guy that's 7'1",
Right.
that's 6'9", even 6'5", Charlton. It's hard to buy off the rack, and the fit is custom as these suits do. These are suits that are provided by the NBA. Now, all the jewelry,
The earrings, how
most
about
of these
those?
players have an agent.
Yeah.
They have
Yeah.
an agent.
Yeah.
That agent is fronted them money. Not only that, Charlton, there's a jeweler who will front you money. They know that you're going to be a number one draft pick in the NBA.
Oh, yeah.
They have no problem giving you $100,000 worth of jewelry because they know that they're going to get it back.
Yep.
A lot of these players have sponsorship before they even get to the NBA. They sign shoe contracts. You know, Zion Williams signed a $40 million shoe contract, so it's not like he's short on money already, okay?
Hopefully he's not the one that he tore up playing in the Duke game when even President Obama was there, Big C. Hopefully he got him a better pair of shoes than that. But
Well,
yeah.
they'll design a shoe that's monikered after him.
Yeah.
But when we look at the NBA putting on a showcase, they put on a showcase to represent them. That's just like years ago when David Stern changed the rules.
Yeah.
No sweatsuits allowed on road games. You're going to wear a suit. You guys are businessmen. You're going to dress like executives, which they are. And I was proud of David Stern for doing that. Because sometimes, just as you said, if somebody is saying something wrong and you don't like it and you
Yeah.
don't correct it,
Yeah.
this is how you're going to live. David
Yeah.
Stern corrected these men. He said, you have to be better than what you showed
Yeah.
in public.
I
This
agree.
is what you do. And he showed the NBA players that you are better than what you have been representing.
Yeah.
Show people to respect you based on your appearance, not because of the game that you play.
Are walking around with your pants down on your knees and thinking that's cool. I know that came out of the penitentiaries, but it's something that really needs to go. That should go like the Jerry curl. I want to get on to Ja Morant, and you think about Memphis. I still think Memphis needs to do something with their floor. They have make it a better looking floor. Put some money and some thought behind it. But when you think about who Morant is, and he'll have every opportunity to learn the ropes alongside one of the top rookies in the NBA last year in Jaren Jackson. His speed and playmaking ability. I mean, he has so much to offer. I still think he needs some more meat on his bones. And I know you like the guy that you say he's a lot like Steph Curry, but maybe more flashy. I think he has handles. Maybe I don't think anybody is good dribbling the ball as a Kyrie Irving. But this kid didn't play at one of the Power 5 conferences. But with a little bit more size, I think he can have some success in the NBA. Big C, your thoughts?
Well, you know, what Power 5 conference means nothing when it comes to the NBA. I think a guy named Steph Curry didn't play in a Power 5 conference.
Yeah.
I think another guy named, what's his name? He just won an MVP in the tournament, in the finals.
Yeah, your
Kawhi
friend
Leonard.
Kawhi Leonard. Yeah, now he pushes
he didn't
off
play in a
too.
Power 5 conference.
Okay, but Draymond Green doesn't agree that he should be the most valuable player. And
So
yeah,
when we get the overrating of a conference of where a player plays,
Yeah.
you got to look at European players who come into this country, Charlton. They don't play in the Power 5 conference. Basketball is about the ability that you have to exploit the court.
At the next level.
Jay Morant can do that, Charlton. He's an ambidextrous passer with the basketball. He dribbles and passes just as well with left or right hand.
Yeah.
He's an explosive player. This is a guy that can get to the rim. He can create opportunities for teammates. That's what he's going to do. You know, in other drafts, he may have been the number one overall pick in the draft.
Yep.
I think he'll have a quicker opportunity to success than Zion Williams will, Charlton. He won't have as much focus on him and pressure. He will be allowed to just go out and play the game.
That's interesting because not many people think that Zion's going to have the issue with his size. But when you get into the NBA, there are a lot of guys his size. You know, just be honest. We know that when they get on that scale and a guy is really 300 pounds, well, that doesn't look good for a lot of the teams that say we got 300-pound men that are 6'10", 7 feet tall. So they'll say the guy's 280. But you know sometimes that's a stretch. Now, in college, I think they do the same thing. But once he gets into the league, he's not bigger than Joel Embiid. He's not bigger than Jokic. He's not bigger than DeMarcus Cousins. He's not bigger than guys like that can challenge him, inside the paint. So his size, it may be big for college, just like a lot of guys that are huge in college on the football field. By the time they get to the NFL, they realize they got to put on 40 pounds. Big C, your thoughts?
Well, when you look at Zion Williams at Duke, I didn't see a game this past year that Duke lined up on the court and there were 5 NBA players on the opposing team.
No.
Nobody that was drafted, Charlton, lined up and there was 5 opposing NBA players on the opposite team.
Yeah.
You're always going to have one. Some teams have 3, and you get lucky, you might have 4 players get drafted out of a roster.
Yeah.
But now, every night, Charlton, even the guys that come off the bench are NBA players. One of the things that young players deal with a lot when they come into the professional ranks is that there's some grown man who has a job that doesn't want to lose it because of your height.
And doesn't like you,
You know,
right?
he's not going to bow down because you were the number 1 pick in the draft or
not
you
like
were a
the media.
first-round draft pick.
Yeah.
There's a lot of them that have gone shopping, and all you have to do is look at teams, Charlton, and see who's been effective over the past couple of years. If you go back to last year's draft, no one knows who was the 17th pick in the NBA draft on any team, Charlton,
No.
over the last 5 years. But none of those guys are in the NBA right now.
Yeah.
So think of the 17th pick in the draft over the last 5 years. None of those guys were on an NBA roster at the end of the season last year.
Yeah,
So
that's true.
when you talk about impact players, just because you're a first-round pick does not guarantee that you're going to be around. I mean, they will find a reason to get you to the G League.
They do
You
all the
will
time.
go there. There's plenty of players that were first and second-round picks that are toiling in the G League because there's just not enough roster spots, and they could not compete with the grown men that were already on the roster, Charlton.
That's very true. And I love what's happening with the world of the NBA. A lot of guys have just seen their dreams come true, and I love talking about it. What we're going to do is come up on what we call the Big C pause, and when we come back, we're going to talk more about the draft. Also, there's some talk of college football. There's some games. I really like the fact that you have Notre Dame playing Georgia down in Georgia, and it's a night game. You can't take the Irish down to Georgia at nighttime. Don't they have those hedges on the side of on the sideline? They never check what's inside of those hedges, Big C. I think Notre Dame might want to look out. We'll take what's called the Big C pause, and we'll be right back in just a moment. All right, we are back from the Big C pause. This is Big C Sports, and we love what we do. You can follow Big C Sports on the iHeartRadio podcast. Actually, 24 hours a day, 7 days a week, you can follow Big C Sports. You can also follow Big C Sports on Spreaker. You can follow Big C Sports on Apple Podcasts. You can follow Big C Sports on Google Podcasts. We are also on YouTube. We can have a Big C Sports show on Xfinity Comcast. That's amazing. I really appreciate the growth. But what I really like is if you have that app in your home called Alexa. When you go home, say, Alexa, play Big C Sports Podcast. You hear from our sponsors, and then you'll hear welcome to the show, and our show will come up. So we thank all of our sponsors for their support. I want to just dive right back into this NBA draft that happened last night. And we won't go through all the guys because, as you said, who knows the number 17 guy from last year, Big C? And they're still out there, but no one really pays attention to them. When you look at DeAndre Hunter, congratulations on a national championship. Talk about a field of dreams. Remember the movie Kevin Costner, If You Build It, They Will Come? That was a baseball. But still, DeAndre Hunter wins a national championship last year at Virginia. And many Auburn players are still saying, yeah, that really wasn't their championship. They got the benefit of a call. But he's a 6'8", 222-pound, and he's a solid player. He's going to have to put some size on him. But when I think about this, and maybe I'm too sensitive, strong measurements for a combo forward prospect at 6'8", 227. Some people say 222. His wingspan is 7 feet 2 inches. I know that may matter on paper, but does it matter the wingspan of a guy who can play where there's Kyrie Irving? Does it matter the wingspan of a guy where there's a Magic Johnson? Or is Allen Iverson, Hakeem the Dream Olajuwon? Does it matter the wingspan of Michael Jordan? I mean, doesn't it matter that you can play? But I'm always picking things that I look at how they describe mostly black athletes. It reminds me of the movie Django, when they would have people stand up on the trading block and say, this guy has big shoulders, big pecs, big biceps, his feet and arm size. That's still what I see. I see nothing about his GPA, what he studied in college. Maybe I'm too sensitive, but like Cornel West said, you got to tell people if something bothers you, your thoughts.
Well, I've always wanted these sports shows to talk about an athlete's intelligence, not just his intangibles of genetic features, Charlton.
Yeah.
And that's what they sell people on. And that's the reason why society looks at athletes the way they do. That they're Laura Ingalls, just shut up and dribble, because that's how we're looking at you.
Yeah.
We're not looking at you as a salient person that you can sit down and hold a prescient conversation with anybody, that you can enlighten me and inform me of things that I didn't know about, I wasn't aware of.
Yeah.
And so as long as everybody is sold on just the physical measurements of an African-American, Charlton, that's how they think of them, just as a tape measure.
Yeah.
They're not looking at them as an individual. And I mean, a bad representation of black people is Ben Carson when he was testifying on Capitol Hill. He was a HUD secretary who didn't know any of the acronyms that they were using in Congress.
Yeah.
And so they say, okay, if this guy is a neurosurgeon, what the hell should I think about an athlete?
He didn't know
the best they have.
He didn't know that HUD stands for
as a
housing.
neurosurgeon.
He didn't know that HUD stands for housing and urban development. He just didn't understand it. He just thought he
didn't understand. But you see what I'm saying, Charlton?
Yeah.
When you put this so-called intelligent neurosurgeon on the grandest of stages in television, and he's a doctor, we're talking about athletes. So why would you ask an athlete what you ask a doctor? If the doctor doesn't understand, how can an athlete possibly understand?
Well,
so when you put minorities in that position, that you're saying this is the best that they have, and he's the dumbest that we've ever seen. What should I think of the athlete?
I think they were asking Carson, what's an REO? He said, I'm not really sure. It's called a real estate owned property. That's what
but he thought it was a cookie. He thought it was an Oreo cookie. That's what he thought it was.
He wanted some milk to dip in.
Send a couple boxes over to your office.
He said, Big C, can you bring me some milk? That's what he said, Big C. That's crazy, but it's all fair and love and war. And just because we talk about things, and I want people to know that we're not jaded, we're not angry. I'm just passionate because I love myself. I love black people. I love our diaspora of people. But when I see how the bell curve garbage is out there, all life came from Africa. That's Dr. Leakey and Gregor Mendel. Google that. So even if you're on Ancestry123.com and people say, oh, I'm part Irish, or I'm part Italian, I'm part Scandinavian, I'm part South American, all life came from Africa.
The thing that I love about those Ancestry commercials
they
that
stop
they
at
put
the
on
they stop at the 5 generations.
Yeah, when they stop at that point, when you see that little sliver, and that sliver is dark. It's not light, it's dark. The darker the sliver gets, the less they talk about that percentage of nationality in that person, of genetics. And so that's when I talked about you're 1/6 removed from having a minority, a dark complected person in your genetic pool.
It's
and
all
so
there.
When we get to Ancestry.com, when you buy that kit, expect to see it.
Expect to see it. It's almost like sometimes you ever have a neighbor and there's a dispute about a tree. You can plant a tree, or you might even move into the property, and that tree has been around for 60 years, so the branches might hang over to your side of the property. And it drops those little acorns or whatever into your property, and they want you to. They may say, "Hey, you know what? Your tree's dropping acorns on my side of the fence. I want you to cut that tree off." But they don't go to where the root of that tree started. Ancestry.com, the root started in Africa, all life in the Nile region, according to science. I mean, some people don't believe in science, so when you're buying that Ancestry.com and that where you came from.com, if it don't say you're from Africa, then you get your money back. Does that make any sense, Big C? Did I give you the whole picture?
Well, the thing about that, Charlton, they want to satisfy people in what they want to hear. And
Mitch
so
McConnell.
You're sending this kit off to somebody else. Who doesn't know who you are. But they know where your address is, so they can Google and they can redline and see where you were. And they can put in there the results of the test that you want. That's what they do.
And let me ask you this question, too, because we just talked about, Biden and Booker, boy and son and all that stuff, and I shouldn't apologize because I'm not able to see how another man feels, so I'm not going to apologize. That's not leadership, Joe Biden. If you're the top Democratic person that they're trying to put in office, you can't act like you're still hanging out with Strom Thurmond having coffee. You just can't do that, but maybe you can. At the same time, when people take those DNA kits, now I'm sensitive to this because I'm a person of color, and I know that the criminal justice system, black men are more likely to be accused of a crime even by black people, will accuse you of doing something you did not do. So when someone says, we found your DNA at the scene of this crime, you go, well, I was never there. Well, the DNA said you were. Well, who's getting your DNA? Where are they putting the DNA? Is it being refrigerated, Big C? Is it being handled properly? We've seen in the O.J. Simpson trial. I don't care if he's innocent or guilty. I wasn't there. But I know they said DNA said certain things, but it wasn't handled properly. Now, why is some knucklehead going to say, come take my DNA and send it to some company, some government agency, and you don't know who they are? In 5 years, they can say you were at some place you never were. Does that make any sense? Your thoughts?
Well, you talk about O.J. Simpson. Look at the Central Park Five, Charlton. When you
Amen to
had
that.
DNA that exonerated these young men at the time that they were convicted.
Yeah.
The DNA exonerated them, but the prosecutors were overzealous and they were racist and they wanted to have a high, notarized conviction. That's
Yeah.
what they wanted to have. A high-profile
Locking up
conviction
black
is what they
folks,
were
yeah.
looking for.
Yeah.
So even though you knew that these young five men were innocent and they did not commit the crime, the
According to
DNA that
science.
was on the assailant
Yeah.
was not theirs. But you say that didn't matter. They were black, so they had to have done something.
Yeah.
They were out in the street. They had to have committed some kind of crime. That's how black people have lived in this country forever. If something occurred, you had to have done something. Otherwise,
Why would
you
they
wouldn't
accuse
be
you?
here.
Yeah.
So we're going to accuse you of something, and something will come up that we can stick it to you. The Central Park Five is a perfect example of that. Our president wanted these five young men killed for a crime that they did not commit.
Did not do.
He wanted them killed for a crime that they did not commit. And yet there's people committing crimes every day in America that they have the DNA on, and they don't do anything to them. We got all these school shooters, and 338 school shootings in 2018.
A shame.
I didn't hear the president once call for the death penalty for any of those assailants. He said, well, they're sick people.
Yeah.
They have problems. No, they were murderers. Not once. And they had a smoking gun. Did the president ask for them to be put to death?
No, he never did. And we saw a lot of that stuff was on tape. And I just want to bring this up. I told you, Big C Sports is not just your regular sports program. We're for people who read. So when I go back to the #1 draft pick last night, and we're talking about DNA and where people come from, and we all came from Africa. Scientists know that. They've known that over 100 years. Billy Graham told that to Nixon, and he said, stay out of the politics. We all know that. Now, what does police officer call black kids when they pull them over? Down on the ground. Boy, it's that mentality, that Strom Thurmond thing that we've all heard about. So now we talk about this Central Park Five, but they don't believe the DNA. Even POTUS said he won't apologize because he doesn't trust science. Doesn't trust science, Big C. And now when these young black kids, and media's behind it, but I'm asking the intelligent black athletes, stop it. Don't let someone call you a freak. Don't let someone call you a specimen. Call them right back to their face. You got to do that because we have kids coming up too. And when we clap and applaud someone being called a freak, the #1 draft pick out of Duke, the freak, Zion the freak, or Giannis Antetokounmpo, the Greek freak, that's what law enforcement thinks of them when they're driving the nice cars at nighttime. That's, black kids are 10 times more likely to be expelled from school for the same things that white kids do. Mostly the person doing the expelling, they're white. But when we don't oppose being called a freak and a specimen, then you're planting that seed that it's okay, just like the N-word. That's why Biden should apologize to Cory Booker. Hey, say, I didn't understand it. Let me apologize, but that's not my heart. As opposed to saying, I'm not going to apologize. If Biden can have that mentality, and he served as a wonderful, vice president for President Obama. And if you can say to mainstream, I'm not going to apologize because you feel sensitive, then why would black people give the vote to you? I just want to make sure that's understandable. If you're too big to apologize for another person's feelings, it's okay to be wrong. Relationships do it all the time. Oftentimes, you don't have to be right in a relationship to make things right. You will always be accused of something, and many people who accuse you of something, they're the ones doing it themselves. But you can still apologize. Big C, does that make any sense, your thoughts?
Well, we're looking at an era of people, Charlton, that feels that they're Teflon.
Yeah.
When you look at politics, people say, well, you have to be of a certain age to run the country. President Obama was a young man in his 40s. He ran this country very well. President Clinton was a young man in his 40s. Did a marvelous job. We had a surplus financially in this country with young presidents.
Yeah.
Not old presidents, young presidents. We didn't go to war with either one of those presidents, Charlton. American lives were spared, not having to go fight a war in another country.
Yeah.
So when we look at old people, Charlton, in politics, Biden's in his 70s, Trump's in his 70s, Sanders in their 70s, they think the way things happened in America 40, 50 years ago, Charlton, that's their mindset. When they had unrelinquished power, where they could do and say whatever they wanted to do in this society. for America to change, we have to take a step back and go back with the youth in the White House. We need someone in their 40s and 50s who understands what mainstream society goes through.
Yeah.
Just like you think about it in athletics, you don't go out and draft a 50-year-old power forward. You go out and draft a 19-year-old power forward and develop him. Let him grow in the industry that he's in. We got to look at that in politics. When people say, well, you have to have gone through things to understand what the rest of the people need. No, you can't tell me that a 75-year-old man understands the needs of a 20, 25-year-old man or woman. They don't, Charlton. They move beyond that phase of their life, and it doesn't matter to them. So as we look at young people in America, those people that are between 18 and 30, that are the nucleus of our society, they are the ones who are not electing the officials that we need, Charlton. We look at all the tens of thousands of people that are in college, millions most likely. They don't get out and change the world, Charlton. They have to. You can't rely on your parents and grandparents to keep changing society if you're unhappy with it.
I understand it, and that's part of what dialogue is. As I was just looking at articles that talked about there's two players. One was Gordon Hayward, and how Gordon Hayward came back from the injury, and now he's trying to be the big man on Boston again, especially if they get rid of Kyrie Irving. And it's just amazing when you look at how they've put an article under someone's name. On that same page, there's something about Giannis, his meticulous routines that mold the Greek freak. We're just talking about that. And it's in a mainstream article. One picture of Gordon, white dude. Another picture of Giannis, man of color. Under Gordon, there's nothing about him being a white freak or an Irish freak. But here's a man from Greece, and they call him freak. It's right there as if I'm dumb. And no one apologizes for it until Big C Sports comes out and said, that's blasphemy. Because they don't put the word freak on the little white girls when they're running for Miss America pageants. They don't put the name freak on some reporter who's Caucasian interviewing athletes. Here comes the freak reporter to the locker room.
I've never heard Tom Brady be referred to as a freak.
No.
6 Super Bowl rings. They don't say he's freaky.
No,
with 6 Super Bowl rings.
No.
No one calls Aaron Rodgers a freak at quarterback. No one calls Matt Ryan a freak at quarterback. So when you look at how these athletes are labeled, we don't hear white freaks when it comes to baseball players, the pitchers. He's not freakish with his skills on the mound. No one says that about Verlander, Scherzer, the Holiday. No one has ever called them a freak on the mound.
No, not at all.
And when I've looked at white basketball players throughout history, Larry Bird was never called a freak.
Nope.
He was just a superior athlete, as he called.
Yeah.
He was a great team player. He was never referred to as a freak. Larry Bird was more of a freak than any white player that's been around.
Yeah.
When you think about what he was able to accomplish in a black basketball world. No one called him a freak. He was more respected from the white media than that.
As a man.
So as we look at every industry out there, you're going to tell me that Bill Gates is a freak because of what he's created with Microsoft? Was Steve Jobs a freak with what he did with Apple during his lifetime? You know, when we look at all of these people, Elon Musk with Tesla and the rockets, is he a freak? You know, with what he's created in society. White professionals are not labeled as freaks. They're geniuses. They're geniuses. Why is it only a black athlete that's a freak and a white professional a genius?
Because oftentimes we don't push back at it. You also want to know who doesn't call a white men and women freaks when they pull up on them in a patrol car? Law enforcement. They call them Mr. and Mrs. Jones. They don't consider them he's a freak. What they call what was it, drive them all black, they call it DWB. And it's a mentality. And if we all walk through society like we're numb because a few African-American men were made multimillionaires last night, and it's okay, but I guarantee you, the fancier car they have, unless they're just naive, the fancier car they have, they got to really look over their shoulders when they're driving throughout the neighborhoods now. And you know it's true, Big C. And I hope that if Big C Sports will be the show that starts this, just like Dr. Cornel West. I love listening to that man speak. I wish he was on TV more. Even Anderson Cooper, as a white guy, says, I learn something every time Cornel West is on. But I would wonder if Cornel West will be interviewed by one of these NBA analysts and their thoughts on Zion Williamson being called a freak. Because he really educated. And I would hope that maybe Adam Silver would reach out to Cornel West, because this has to happen at the top. The Big C Sports is not the biggest platform. We're on the biggest platform in the universe, but at the same time, there are other platforms that may have more. I guess they're more well known, but they're not more conscious than what we offer. Because I can guarantee you this: of all the shows that they've heard today about congratulations, you made it now, and what's it like to have $1 million in the bank now, and what kind of shoe you're gonna have now, not one of those sports programs have asked them how painful it feels to their parents when mainstream reporters, they will walk up and put a microphone in your face and call you a freak right in front of your mama that gave birth to you. And they do it with impunity because you sit there embarrassed and let them do it. It can't happen anymore. Not for conscious people, Big C. Does that make sense? Words matter. Your thoughts?
Well, I would love for the professional leagues to bring in people like Dr. Cornel West when they have their rookie symposiums, whether it's in the NFL, whether it's in the NBA.
Yeah.
And let them hear an intelligent, articulate man of knowledge. That's what they need to do.
Yeah.
Not just bring in a guy who said, well, you got to stay out of this club and, you can't hang with these people.
Right.
Bring in somebody who can enlighten them to where their lives need to be directed toward.
Yeah.
That's what they need to do. You're going to have people to tell you to stay out of trouble, but you need to have people to tell you and show you how to be intelligent.
Yeah. Remember that thing that Ali, when the kids were saying, I am Ali, and it was when he was a younger man, but even after he passed, there were people that had shirts that said, I am Ali. Well, you can't do anything for him once he passed away, but when he was alive, he spoke with intelligence, and he was proud. And I just want people to see that, because I mean this with all my heart. I like everybody. I know all life came from Africa, so I can't hate anybody. All of us came from the same place, whether you believe in God or not. People are people. They're good, bad, and all of us. Dr. Cornel West talked about that last night when he was talking to Anderson Cooper. And it woke something up inside of me, Big C, because this happened to me when I was a young boy, but inside of a bank today with my own son, and I've been going to that bank for 11 years. And to have the person, one of the clerks say, did you see the draft last night? And there's a lot of white people in the bank. They didn't ask him that question. They asked my son, though. And he said, yeah, I saw the draft last night. He said, what'd you think of it? He said, it was okay. And I just want the point is, we have to direct how people treat us. And I don't want someone calling my boy a freak. You're a good-looking freak, young man. No, that won't happen. But it's so brazen they do it on TV. I know we talk about it. It's not the beginning or the end of this conversation. I just hope that we have more enlightened people of color that have access to the microphones. I want to just touch real quick, Big C. I want to finish your thoughts on the NBA draft, and then I want to run down baseball, and I'm going to ask you a closing thought for tonight's show, Big C. Your thoughts?
Well, Charlton, when you look at the draft, I mean, everybody concentrates on the top. But you got to look at the teams that were good. Did they get better? That's what you really want to look at. The teams that were in the playoffs, Charlton. What type of impact did they have last night in the draft? You think about the Toronto Raptors.
Yeah.
They drafted Kevin Porter Jr., a guard out of USC, 6'6". This is a guy that can help with what they do offensively. They have the size underneath the basket when you think about Siakam and Ibaka and Gasol. If they bring all those guys back, Charlton, they needed another wingman. You think about Lowry. He's slowing down. These are the things that you look at. How well did the good teams do in the draft last night? Everybody's going to talk about what the last teams in the league did.
Right.
The teams that don't make the playoffs. They get all the emphasis. I know people asked Barrett last night, how do you feel with the weight of New York on your back?
It's not.
He's 19 years old. He's never played a game.
Right.
He don't know.
Right.
He doesn't know what New York is.
Nope.
He's hoping to get there and survive.
Yeah.
The same with Zion Williams. He's 18 years old. He's hoping not to eat too many beignets in New Orleans. That's what he's hoping for.
Yeah.
So when you ask that 18, 19-year-old young man, how are you going to change an organization?
Yeah.
All they hope to do is blend in and survive in that organization, Charlton. None of the players taken in first round last night will be in contention for the most valuable player in the NBA. The only thing that they can be in contention for, Charlton, is Rookie of the Year.
Yeah.
That's it. They won't be on the all-NBA defensive team because they can't play defense at that level yet, Charlton.
Yeah.
None of them are going to lead the league in scoring. None of them are going to lead the league in assists. None of them are going to lead the league in rebounds. So these are the things that you look at when you bring in a rookie. You're bringing in a prospect.
Yeah.
You're bringing in a developmental player. It's been a long time since a rookie has busted onto the scene and taken over the NBA.
Yeah.
It just does not happen, Charlton. So as you look at even the great players in the league today, it took all of them a few years to develop. Even
Yep.
LeBron James coming into the league out of high school, it took him 3 years to make the playoffs. So if any of these rookies in the top 10 make the playoffs in the first 3 years in the league, Charlton,
Yes.
then we might be looking at the next LeBron James.
We
But
might
if
be
not
looking at-
that,
yep.
we're just looking at NBA players to hopefully have a longevity in their career.
And we wish them all the best. And again, for my brethren on radio and TV, especially if you're a person of color and you look like Zion Williamson and you look like Giannis Antetokounmpo, when they bring you onto the show, say, hello, my name is whatever your name is, freak. You wouldn't want to be called a freak. So let's stop that garbage of labeling black men as that. Because if we do it as sports people and sports broadcasters and TV hosts, when the law enforcement officer pulls up behind your car with your family, like the ones down in Arizona, and in the subconscious mind, they consider you a freak or a specimen or a menacing person, not an erudite, Christian, well-read person. Just think about that. Let's not be part of that hate cycle. Joe Biden, you should apologize, especially when you're going to ask for the black vote, because a lot of people felt like Booker. They should both sit down and break bread. Nobody's perfect, but it all starts with conversation. Tonight's Major League Baseball schedule: Atlanta at Washington, Big C at Houston at the New York Yankees. What a series that will be. Miami at Philadelphia, San Diego at Pittsburgh. You have Detroit at Cleveland, Toronto at Boston. Another great series it should be. Los Angeles Angels at St. Louis. You have Chicago. And also St. Louis, going back, Pujols going back to St. Louis. It's amazing for him to be back in that city. Hope they treat him well there. He did a lot for them in St. Louis. Chicago White Sox at Texas, Cincinnati at Milwaukee, Minnesota at Kansas City, San Francisco at Arizona, Tampa Bay at Oakland. And again, I'm not really feeling them going back to Montreal for some of their games, but we'll see if that happens or not. Colorado at Los Angeles Dodgers, Baltimore at Seattle, and a matchup New York Mets at the Chicago Cubs. Big C, Pujols going, he's going back into St. Louis where they made him wealthy. And then he signed a bigger contract and became even more wealthy in Los Angeles. What type of treatment do you think they're giving Pujols going back to St. Louis, Big C? Your thoughts?
Charlton, I see nothing but standing ovations. The great fans of St. Louis will appreciate what Albert Pujols did during his playing time there. All players seek the better opportunity of free agency. Anaheim offered him more money at the time when he left years ago going out to the West Coast. But they'll always remember what he brought to that city. A World Series, Charlton, an all-star player who gave his all every night for that great city of St. Louis. And he'll always be in the lore there. And what a great time to come back to St. Louis, Charlton.
Goodness.
After the Blues have won a Stanley Cup, to be a part of that, when that team was in abysmal land in the NHL, now they're on the top of the hockey world. And Albert Pujols gets a chance to come back home and help celebrate with them.
Isn't that amazing? Coming back, I love what you just said. Coming back to St. Louis to celebrate in a city where he brought 2 championships. And now the Blues having a championship, it should be like a nice family reunion for the whole city of St. Louis, maybe even all the state of Missouri. And I'm sure they'll receive him very well, the great Albert Pujols, Big C. I want to say you can follow Big C Sports 24 hours a day, 7 days a week on iHeartRadio Podcast. You can follow Big C Sports on Google Podcasts. You can follow Big C Sports on Apple Podcasts. You can find us on Spreaker. You can follow Big C Sports on YouTube. You can follow us on Xfinity Comcast. You can follow Big C Sports with this app that I really love. It's called Alexa. When you walk home tonight, you say, Alexa, play Big C Sports Podcast. You'll hear from our sponsors, and then you'll hear welcome to the show, and then our show will start. So we thank all of our sponsors for that support and growth. I really wanted to just touch on this show tonight. It was very, God does things in mysterious ways. People come and go out of your life, and if they accuse you of something that you didn't do, then let them go. But I don't want that happening to my boy. I don't know any father that doesn't want to protect his son or daughter. I just haven't met that man yet. But when we got to understand that at the crowning moment of a person's life athletically, and they should be happy, white kids are not called freaks. They don't call Tom Brady a freak. They don't call Aaron Rodgers a freak. They don't call, like you said, Matt Ryan a freak. They don't call him that. They don't say the freak Joe Montana. None of those white kids have been labeled freaks. They got Giannis, and now they got Zion. And I hope they're pressing enough to stop that garbage. Because you don't call white ladies freaks when they get on TV to interview you. Black women either. They got to stop it. Dr. Cornel West is right. If we don't stop it, we become part of our own problem. Big C, back in the day, there was a man by the name of Drew Boudini Brown. He was known as Muhammad Ali's right-hand man. And he would always tell Ali, with all you got to use, how can you lose? Rumble, young man, rumble. Big C, what are you looking forward to in the sports universe?
Well, Charlton, after the second round of the NBA draft tonight, we're going to have the NHL draft coming up as the first part of the week. But I also want to look across the pond at the World Cup. And we still have undefeated teams in the Ladies World Cup. The United States, Netherlands, England, Germany, and France, Charlton, are all undefeated in the World Cup. And they moved into the elimination round of 16. Looking for the ladies' world soccer team to bring home the World Cup once again.
And I'm sure they'll bring it home, and they'll bring it home in proud fashion. And none of our soccer players will be called freaks. Just keep that in mind as you celebrate black athletes. I want to say every Monday through Friday at 5 and 6 p.m. worldwide, follow Big C Sports on the Big C Sports Network, on the #1 network in the United States of America. And Big C Sports has been voted the #1 sports show in the universe, according to Big C and them good old boys down south. As we always tell you, that's never, ever an excuse for domestic violence. If you know any man or woman going through that garbage, please pick up the phone, call 911, because no man or woman should ever have to go through that garbage on their own. And as we always tell you, on every Big C Sports show, we thank you, we appreciate you, and we hope that you have a super fantastic day.